Someone could view the context of what she did. Set up a private system. She alone controlled it. She kept everything on it. We now know from Ms. Abedin's deposition that they did it for that very reason, so no one could see what was there. Is that part of the context in evaluating this decision?
Sure, sure. And understand what inferences can be drawn from that collection of facts, of course.
Congressman Jim Jordan joins us now. Congressman Jordan, thanks for taking the time.
You bet.
Really intense hearing there. Do you feel that we got some answers that we needed, and where do we go from here?
Well, we'll see. One of the places we may go is when Secretary Clinton testified in front of the Benghazi committee last October. It appears very strongly that she said false things. She said, for example, that she had one server. Mr. Comey in his investigation says, no, there were several servers. She said her legal team screened every single email. He said in his investigation, in his comments on Tuesday, that they did not screen every single email. And maybe most importantly, she testified under oath at that hearing that nothing she sent or received was marked classified. And Mr. Comey said, yes, in fact, there were. So there's a question of her truthfulness when she testified last fall in front of the committee. So that's one area I think we may see some future examination of.
A big area, of course, of contention is the semantics, if you will, between carelessness and gross negligence and those sort of things. And I came away from this thinking that James Comey thought it was his job to interpret the constitutionality of a 1917 statute. Is that the FBI director's job, or is his job just to investigate these things and then pass along the recommendations up the chain?
He spent a lot of time talking about intent. Was there intention to do harm, knowingly do harm, willfully do wrong, harm, or do wrong? And he talked about what were they thinking. Here's what we know. They said about this scheme of setting up a email situation, server situation, to hide information from the public. So they set up this server, unprecedented, unauthorized. She controls it herself, everything on their personal, work-related, Clinton Foundation information, and now we know classified information on that device. She gets caught. It's discovered she has this arrangement. When she gets caught, her legal team decides which ones we get and which ones they keep. The ones they kept, then they deleted. Thousands of them, tens of thousands of them, they deleted. And maybe the most telling is her lawyers, and I'll read from it, lawyers cleaned their devices in such a way as to preclude complete forensic recovery. That sounds to me like a fancy way of saying they wiped it clean and hid the evidence. So when you have that kind of scheme to hide things, that seems to me to point to an intention to do this. And that's one of the themes we tried to develop in this hearing as well. And probably the biggest theme, I think, Charles, is the fact that a lot of Americans today are thinking there's two standards now. There's one for we the people and an entirely different one for the politically connected. And that's a problem in a country as great as ours. That should just not be the case.
There's absolutely no doubt about that. And, of course, that point was hammered home on more than one occasion. And I think where he almost caught himself up and he tried to maybe rescue himself is when he applied it to his own job at the FBI, saying certainly people would pay a serious punishment from that, whether it was just a reprimand or actual termination. So and the notion that she's getting off scot-free, even he admits that if this was within the FBI, that would not happen.
Yeah, what he said Tuesday, until he got to the conclusion, until he got to the part where he said we're not gonna take it to a grand jury. What he said up until that point, I think, is pretty telling in talking about just the fact pattern that happened here, what took place here, how it looks like it was orchestrated right from the get-go. She set this private server up when she was being confirmed. I think that says a lot.
Representative Jim Jordan, thank you very much. It's been a long, grueling day, and I appreciate you coming out to talk to us.